If a woman doesn't have her basic right to health met, if she doesn't have the right to control her own body, then her life is forever restricted. So she has no human rights if she can't control her own body in that way. So this is why women go into the street. The International Women's Health Coalition is a small nonprofit based in New York. The heart of our work is actually in countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where we have worked for over 20 years with local organizations to promote women's health and human rights in their own countries. We don't do everything ourselves. Rather, our role is to facilitate what other people do. Because this has been my life work, although I did marry twice, I found marriage just was not compatible with this passion. This really is a life work for me, and I tend to forget that. And I love it. It's my choice. It's what I decided to do with my life. But that's not true for very many people. My family had no international interest whatsoever, had never traveled anywhere. And so what I do is just completely foreign. My parents were both in what you'd call more social work. We lived in a very modest lifestyle, but also my twin sister and I were very sheltered. I was raised to be concerned about those less fortunate, but in terms of any kind of political sense, that only came when I left my upbringing behind. I earned all the money to pay for the trip and all this stuff, and I told my parents, and they absolutely lost it. I was, it's a good example of what I mean by my family having no background for this whatsoever. They were horrified. I thought they'd be proud of me, but they were absolutely horrified. So I decided to go anyway. During the 6 months in Peru, not speaking much of the language, I absorbed a lot viscerally. Sound, sight, smell. I learned about the details of women's lives, especially those living in very deep poverty. In a remote community in the Peruvian Amazon jungle, we arrived there at the moment when the community was burying a young woman who had just died, giving birth to her 5th child. And clearly she didn't have any access to health services to help her with this delivery. And I can still remember the burial site, and I remember clearly her 4 children. It's something that you don't forget. These kind of experiences do drive me even today, because they go on and on and on, and they're not necessary. They are totally preventable. Good morning, everyone. I really look forward to this. Let me share with you a few facts about women's health globally. First, I'm sure you all know this, but it's too often ignored. Women get pregnant and men don't. No. I started my work in a field called population, and it was a field more than 40 years ago that was defined and led largely by men, as it happens, in terms of the part of it that I worked in, which was those people who funded and designed and delivered population programs, meaning usually family planning, contraceptive services in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They were motivated by an ultimate social good in their minds, that they felt that if the population growth could be slowed, the people would be better off. But they were not really motivated by the health and human rights of the individual. The woman was the focus because it's women who get pregnant, not men, and so that focus was there. But the woman herself as a person, as an individual who is endowed with rights, who ought to have choice, wasn't part of the construct. So when I came into the picture, not being yet a conscious feminist, but having a very deep sense of social justice, I just couldn't understand and could not accept all of the talk about users of contraception. The word woman was virtually never used, and that was just an indication of how women were really an instrument, a means to an end. The idea was to get as many contraceptive users as possible. So, we had a real struggle, and there were only about 3 other women in the population council at the time. So, although I wasn't feminist in my consciousness as a human being, it was such a distinction. I'd never been in a circumstance in my life where I was such an extreme minority. And here were all these men presumably dealing primarily with women, but not using the word. So it just didn't sit right. If a woman doesn't have her basic right to control her own body, who touches it, with whom she has sex, whether she marries or not, if she can't control those decisions herself, then basically the rest of her human rights are meaningless. She has no effective citizenship, and the consequences that I think societies fail to realize are not just for her. She can't be the strong member of the household, either the strong helpmate to her partner or the very strong mother to children that she chooses to have, or the income earner, all of those other roles. Then outside the house, in the community, she can't be there forcefully helping to lead the country and to have a stake in what happens. So this is why women go into the street. All of these things add up to just being an autonomous, respected human being. What happens is that you can't have all of those values of democracy and human rights if half of your population is not treated equally. I get more passionate, not less. It's very hard for me to accommodate to anyone or anything that isn't as passionate and determined to change the world for women and girls.